Thank you for joining me for Family Beer and Liquors Wine 101. I'm Tim Althaus, and my love affair with wine began about 10 years ago, and since that time I really have just developed a fondness for wine and sharing wine with friends and families and with customers. So I'm going to give you a little introduction to wine and to help you understand wine a little bit better and try to appreciate some of the more interesting aspects of wine. Wine can be very intimidating. There's no question about it. What I'd like to do is to try to make you more comfortable with wine and make you understand why people who drink wine do the different things that they do. Something that I want to mention is, because people are intimidated by wine, don't be afraid to ask questions. When you're in your wine shop, ask, what is the difference between this wine and that wine, or do you have any recommendations? And I also recommend, if you can attend tastings, that's a wonderful way to sample many different styles of wine. It'll help introduce you to wines that you've never tried before. And you can also talk to the experts behind the table who are pouring the wine and ask them questions. We do weekly wine tastings every Saturday from noon to 3. It's a great way to come in and try 5 or 6 different wines, and visit with the person who understands the wines and knows a lot about them. Or you can attend things like our fall wine tasting or the grand tasting at Wine Lovers Weekend, where you have a chance to sample between 100 and 300 different wines. So that's quite a bit. And there usually is a charge for the large tastings of anywhere from $20 to $30. The weekly tastings on Saturday noon to 3, there's no charge for those. So just try to enjoy and learn a little bit about the wine. First thing I'm going to mention is I'm going to talk about glassware and the different sizes and shapes of glassware. And I have 2 glasses here in front of me. What would be a typical white wine glass that you'll notice has a smaller bowl, and then a typical red wine glass which has a larger bowl. A big reason for the difference in those 2 sizes is to try to keep the white wines, which you're going to serve chilled, to try to keep them colder longer in your glass. So you pour a little bit less wine in the glass, and it will help keep that at its ideal temperature for longer. And I'll mention a little bit more about temperature here in a second. The red wine glass is served at or close to room temperature. You don't need to worry about it warming up too much and being in a larger bowl. Also, there's many different shapes and sizes to these glasses. What I don't want people to do is get too hung up on the rules. I want you to really, if you have one wine glass and it's this size or it's right between them, don't worry about it. That's fine. But I want you to at least know that there's a reason why we have different sizes and shapes of wine glasses. So the other thing you'll notice that's common to wine glasses is that they have a stem. And here's what I'm going to tell you. Most people who don't drink wine, you'll always see them holding their glass by the bowl. And it may be a little uncomfortable at first, but you really should hold the wine glass by the stem, because your hand, believe it or not, gives off a lot of heat. And whether you have a white wine or red wine, you're trying to serve those at the ideal temperature. You don't want your body heat to warm the wine in the glass higher than it should be. So you hold the glass by the stem or by the base, or however you want to do it. Ideally, you shouldn't hold it by the bowl. And that's how I can always tell. You're not judgmental, but people who have never been to a Tim Althaus Wine 101 class, you always see them holding their glass by the bowl. The stem is the right way to do it. So I'm going to segue into talking about the temperature, because I just mentioned you don't want to hold the bowl or the wine glass by the bowl, because it will get the wine too warm. Temperatures for serving red wines and white wines. Most people in this country serve their white wines too cold and their red wines too warm. There is an ideal temperature for whites and for reds, and refrigerator cold or ice bucket cold really is too cold for most white wines. The temperature range, and I don't expect you to pull your thermometers out and stick it in your wine glass when you're home, but just to have this as a reference point, the temperature range for whites should be in the 45 to 55 degree range. The lighter the whites, the closer to 45 degrees. The heavier the whites, like a big full-bodied Chardonnay, closer to 55 degrees. So, you know, if you keep your wine at home in your refrigerator, maybe take it out of the refrigerator 15 or 20 minutes before you're going to drink it and allow it to warm up to that ideal temperature. Something else you can do is when you have white wine in your glass that's too cold, is actually cup the bowl and swirl it around in there and use your body heat to warm it up. What you'll find by serving your white wines a little bit warmer is they will have much more flavor in your mouth and in aroma, and they will seem less kind of cold, steely, and acidic. So that's why, and do it as a little test. Take a bottle out of your refrigerator, pour a glass, and then have some other wine that's the exact same wine that is, you know, closer to 50 or 55 degrees. You'll be amazed at the difference in flavor in your mouth tasting the wine that's at, you know, 35 or 40 degrees versus when it's at 45 or 50. So I mentioned about serving our reds too warm. Cellar temperature is in that 55 to 57 degree range. Light, fruity reds should be served a lot closer to cellar temperature in that maybe 57 to 60 degree range. Full-bodied, big full-bodied reds like a Cabernet Sauvignon, you'd probably want to serve closer to 65, just slightly below room temperature. And that's the way wine was consumed, you know, for generation upon generation in Europe and other wine-drinking countries. They kept it in their cellar, they pulled the bottle out, and they drank it. If you have wine that gets warmer than room temperature, if you start seeing it get up in, you know, 72, 74, 75, you'll notice it will accentuate the alcohol, and you'll feel a little bit more of that heat, a little bit more of that alcohol burn as you swallow the wine. And so that's why, another reason why you don't want to serve your reds too warm.